happy Wednesday. It's, I'm a little late again going today. Got sidetracked with some aerosol action outside. I went to the grocery store and, of course, in my face as I walked out, there they were. And so I got some shots. Came back and had my breakfast at 2. And as I intermittent fast, and I've been doing that for quite some time, it works for me. So I'm on a 16-8 plan generally. I have a keto coffee in the morning, and that kind of rolls me till 2 o'clock, and then I have my breakfast, and then shoot. Of course, some of you don't really know me from the old days. I got my start in the hemp food business in 2000. But in fact, I worked on the legalization effort of hemp, and prior to that, had a hemp retail store, one of the first eco stores in Canada. I didn't promote marijuana in that store. I did the beauty of hemp, and it's where I brought my hemp shopping bags in from. I brought fashion in from all over the world, anything and everything of hemp, down to writing paper. It was, in those days, hemp was considered, dirty and a man's thing. And my job was to, as I realized I was a marketer, and of course I had a bit of a history in fashion. So, I put a different face on it. And in fact, that store, it started on Bowen Island, just outside of Vancouver. And of course, it was busy in the summer, but in the winter, it died right out. So I moved that downtown. And, although I was barely ever breaking even, I got a lot of publicity and a lot of notoriety, in a couple of national magazines, the papers all the time. And of course, this is before, we were really using the internet. So it wasn't as easy as it is today, believe me. So I worked on the legalization effort of hemp, and in fact, I sold the exhibit space. The first year, actually, I produced the fashion show, and the second year, I did the fashion show, as well as selling all the exhibit space. I sold 80% of it, based on fashion. There was no basis for hemp fashion in Canada, even if we started growing it. And of course, I came to discover all of this as, the myths that went along with, that we see a lot out there still today, that hemp is going to save the world, but it's not. At that point, textiles were really had been transferred to China. And, natural product manufacturing was just not on in North America at all. And in fact, I went to Massachusetts, and I tried to get that going, and it just was not interesting to anyone. It was a journey of learning. And of course, then I worked on the legalization effort. Year 2, I sold most of the exhibit space based on fashion. But I also came to Saskatchewan to do a fashion show for farmers. I was contracted to do so, and I put on a show where we got snowed in Melfort for the whole weekend. And none of the models could show up, so all the government people had to be my models. And, we got to know people over that weekend, and being snowed in. And that's when I, first understood there was an opportunity to come to Saskatchewan to possibly, embark on the hemp business, which I did in 2000, starting a hemp food company. In that time, of course, I had to advertise, and I started out, because we had no budget, it was me. I, started out of my home. I started out of my garage. A year later, moved into the warehouse, and it wasn't too far from my house. And, the first 2 years I packed all the boxes. I did all of that. Year 2, we moved over and we started doing some small packaging, and we had a little packaging room. The owners were both 90 years old, and they were going to go off, they were going off to buy their gravestones one day, and they asked me if I wanted to buy the building, and I did. And not that easily, but it ended up that, I kind of grew that business into a 6,000 square foot facility in 8 years. It was a real journey, learning all the things I know and all the pitfalls. And I don't profess to know everything, believe me, but during that time, I decided I was going to, start publishing a magazine called Organic Lifestyles. More because I couldn't afford to advertise nationally, in the health magazines to get, for my brand. I started doing a newsletter in the stores, and it got really popular. So it kind of evolved to me going to all my friends in the business and saying, hey, I'll publish a magazine. And I got awfully political. And I believe that was, part of the demise. The fact that I was speaking my mind. I thought I had a lot more latitude than I did. And I am discovering that even here. What's interesting about Organic Lifestyles is I did that for 5 years. And largely I did most of the publication on my own. It was my passion. When I sold my hemp food company, I decided to work on that full time. But unfortunately, that did not last for long. I moved to Toronto, and it was one thing after another. Between a GST audit launched by our government, my accountant said he'd never seen anything like it. And in fact, I found out just not too long ago how it actually came about. And it was a woman who the oil companies unleashed on green companies to find out what their affiliations were. And to dig in, to find out where the funding was coming from. How she was getting that information, I don't know, but I actually saw her admit it in a video. And it all made sense after that. My car was sabotaged. Couldn't prove it, but it was. Of course, I was 4 days over my insurance, my 3 months being in Ontario, and they didn't insure it. There were things that were crazy that went on in my life, and as a result, I decided I had to stop. The last issue I published, in fact, before my car was destroyed, was my exposure of the swine flu, ground zero in Mexico, with Smithfield Farms. I had 2 young reporters on the scene. 2 American, a French girl and an American guy, girlfriend-boyfriend team from Mexico. They were in Mexico City. And they went off and they shot this with a local activist. And claiming that, in fact, the swine flu and the epidemic started right here. It's my last issue. In any case, after all of that and 10 years of craziness, I decided, the universe kind of decided it was time to take a break. And that break went on and on and on, I can tell you. Every time I thought I got back up, I fell down. It was a difficult crawl. But what I can tell you is that I never lost my spirit throughout it. And even though I let the fear get the best of me, I'm not letting that happen again. What I see happening in our world today is just unbelievable to me. What I'm reading every day, I try to make light of it. I try to make a joke of it. But My God, where are we going? This is a shit show. We're doing business with men who behead. We are we have questionable morals. I mean, where is our morality these days? Where are our ethics and where is our integrity? It's shocking. But the deeper you get in, the deeper the subterfuge becomes. And layer by layer, we strip away to the truth. We hear, stories of activists, a woman that I didn't know, that, it might not be just a car accident. And when it starts to touch people that you've met in the community, it's pretty scary. And it's real. I can tell you because I've experienced it in the past. The intimidation, the questions that can't be answered, and you can't go around making wild claims. Nobody will deal with you. You are really left to have only one thing, and that's you and knowing within you what is really going on. And this is where we have to listen to our instincts. This is where we have to establish and know exactly where we are and where we stand ethically. And from what I see of the truth community, I see a lot of ethics. I see a lot of integrity. I see a lot of people going, what the hell is going on? Because we're not creating this. And we're learning it. We're being manipulated into it. I don't think humankind would let convenience be their demise, yet we're doing it because we're being manipulated at every turn. We need to stop and take a look at where we're at right now, because in 10 years, everything's going to change. Our whole entire way of life, right before our very eyes, it's happening. Just keep spreading the word. Don't let fear get the best of you. And when you're unsure of the answer, stop and go within and listen to yourself.